When World War I erupted, soldiers faced unprecedented levels of destruction, trapped in trenches under the relentless fire of machine guns and artillery. The need for a new kind of weapon became urgent. The tank was born, a heavily armored machine capable of crossing rugged terrain, breaking through enemy defenses, and changing the rules of battle. In this video, we'll explore the origins of the tank, its first appearance on the battlefield, and how it changed the face of modern warfare forever. Who invented the tank? In 1903, an Austrian engineer named Gunther Adolf Burstyn joined his country's military with the aim of continuing to develop artillery technology. When witnessing the terrible destruction that these weapons could cause, he set the goal of developing protection against them. Over time, he began to take an interest in battleships that were completely covered in thick steel. Realizing that those who could approach the enemy with such high protection would suffer fewer casualties, he came up with an idea and started implementing it. The idea of a battleship on land was born. The torpedo boats that Burstyn was interested in used cumbersome steam engines that were too large and heavy to operate effectively on land. Instead, he switched to a new emerging energy source, the internal combustion engine. To learn more about this technology, he visited an automobile exhibition in Vienna in 1905. How did an armored car turn into a tank? At the exhibition, Burstyn noticed a steel-clad car on display at Daimler's booth. He immediately realized that this was exactly what he was looking for his project. However, there was still a problem to solve. The four thin wheels that the car relied on could only run on asphalt roads. The car would immediately sink and get stuck if it was in a combat environment. To solve this problem, Burstyn came up with the idea of what we now call tracks. By using more than two wheels on each side, the weight of the car would be distributed more evenly. For this reason, tanks would sink less into the ground than conventional four-wheeled vehicles and could overcome rough terrain without much trouble. By 1911, Burstyn had designed a prototype called Motorgeschütz, which means motorized gun in English. It had tracks and a rotating turret similar to battleships and could be operated by two people. Additionally, there were extendable arms at the front and rear to overcome trenches and obstacles. In the same year, he sent his design to the Austrian War Ministry, but it was rejected without careful consideration. Burstyn then took his invention to Germany, a country he believed to be more open-minded and modern. However, they also rejected his idea. No one was interested in his design or other engineers' designs. The simple reason was that the armies of that time did not yet realize the need for this new type of weapon. How did World War I fuel the development of tanks? On July 28, 1914, the First World War broke out. Although most of the world had long anticipated the impending war, modern warfare exceeded the imagination of military leaders. Explosives and shrapnel from machine guns tore through humans as if they were mere pieces of paper. What military leaders imagined as a large-scale battle like Napoleon or Nelson quickly turned into a situation where both sides dug deep trenches and fortified their front lines. Many soldiers died before reaching the enemy's barbed wire and trenches. In fact, in the first few months of fighting, 1 million soldiers were killed. This staggering death toll highlighted the need for protection, leading to the action of digging deeper trenches, where soldiers could shoot out but were difficult to hit. Commanders on both sides expected the war to end within a few months, so the armored vehicle Motorgeschütz, designed by Burstyn, which would take about 18 months to manufacture, was never produced. Why create those strange devices when a hole on the ground seemed to provide effective protection? As the war dragged on from week to week, month to month, and year to year, people certainly felt that the war would last forever. Over time, the layers of barbed wire became denser and impenetrable. At the same time, around early 1915, the war reached a stalemate, forcing the military to adopt new methods of attack such as using poison gas and laying mines under enemy trenches. On the Western Front, engineers were trying to come up with innovative solutions to overcome these obstacles. From there, the tank as we know it today was born. The need for the Schneider tank. A French brigadier general named Jean-Baptiste Eugène Estienne revived Gunther Burstyn's idea of a tank. He commanded an elite artillery unit of the French army. The heavy guns under his command were powerful, but only effective at close range. He suddenly realized that victory in the First World War would belong to whoever created a mobile artillery capable of moving across the battlefield to fire at enemy trenches. Initially, he wanted to build a tank with caterpillar tracks and thick armor. But like Burstyn, Estienne's superiors also rejected this idea, believing that no engine could carry something so heavy. After almost despairing, Estienne heard about the Schneider Creusot Company in eastern France, which had started building their own tank model. The production process began in May 1915, when Jean-Baptiste Eugène Estienne finally had the opportunity to visit the Schneider factory. He discovered that the Schneider CA-1 tank was being produced at full capacity. However, unlike his design, the Schneider CA-1 tank could not carry a large and heavy gun. Instead, it was equipped with a much smaller 75mm gun, along with 2 machine guns. It was designed to cut through barbed wire, clearing the way for infantry behind. The tank had a top speed of 8 km per hour and 11mm thick armor. In December 1915, Estienne pushed for the establishment of French armored units. Later, the French army ordered 400 CA-1 tanks. By February 1916, the CA-1 was not a perfect design, but compared to the Saint-Chamond tank, another type of tank that France put into use, it had significant advantages. Yes, British tanks. The Heavy Machine Gun Corps, a branch of the British Machine Gun Corps, was established on May 1, 1916. Those in this corps would command tank units in combat. Eventually, the Heavy Machine Gun Corps was renamed the Tank Corps and later became the Royal Tank Regiment. British engineers also began building tanks in 1915. However, unlike the French Schneider CA-1, their vehicles were designed to cut and crush barbed wire. Initially, it was named Landship Little Willie, with many design elements based on warships. At first glance, Little Willie looked like a water tank, so the name tank was used as a code to conceal its true purpose from Germany. Through further design improvements, Little Willie was expanded and fitted with guns. At this point, it was renamed Mother, and this tank was then trained and used in combat by the Heavy Machine Gun Corps. The Mother Tank. The Mother Tank of World War I had a combat crew of 8 people and was designed to overpower enemy tanks and destroy them simultaneously. The female tank versions had 2 machine guns on each side of the vehicle, while the male models were equipped with a large cannon. Like the French CA-1 tank, the Mother Tank also had a maximum speed of 8 km per hour, just slightly faster than the average walking speed of a human. Although they looked intimidating and impressive, the Mother Tanks still faced some serious issues. Firstly, their large size and slow speed made them relatively easy targets for German artillery. The side armor plates of the tanks were not thick enough to withstand bullets, making them vulnerable to attacks from both sides. It is worth noting that the British Army trained their soldiers on completely different terrains than the muddy bomb craters of the actual battlefield. When were tanks first used? In August 1916, the British Heavy Machine Gun Corps was deployed to the Somme battlefield. The tanks moved in absolute secrecy to create surprise and demoralize the German troops in their first unexpected attack. If the tanks successfully broke through, the rest of the army would quickly advance towards Germany to end the war. That was the scenario they imagined. On September 15, 1916, the British tanks attacked the Somme battlefield. When they appeared, some parts of the German troops panicked, but their defensive lines held firm. Overall, it was a disaster. The Germans still held their positions, and out of the 50 tanks that attacked, only 10 returned. Most of them were damaged or caught fire. Many survivors suffered from PTSD and nervous breakdowns. How did tanks affect World War I? The Germans recovered the abandoned British tanks on the Somme battlefield and copied them to create their own versions. However, due to the British naval blockade, Germany's supply of raw materials ran out. Therefore, although engineer Joseph Vollmer designed the A7V tank for the German army, they could only produce 10 tanks because they didn't have enough steel to make more. Overall, tanks in World War I did not have a decisive impact on the war. They couldn't continuously break through the enemy's defensive lines and lead the troops straight into Germany. However, tanks were still a valuable tool in the war effort. The British and French often used them in coordination with infantry and air forces to attack German defensive lines. It can be said that the biggest motivation tanks brought was in terms of morale. In war, this is perhaps the most important factor. Since then, tanks have been continuously improved. Even in World War I, different generations of tanks were witnessed. Today, tanks are an indispensable part of armies worldwide.